Hi there, and welcome back to the HE Enable podcast. My name is Cath, my pronouns are she, they, and welcome to the third part of the ADHD Survival Guide. This mini-series is all about presenting you with tips and tricks to make life a little bit more efficient while living with ADHD at university. I made the Survival Guide after spending the past few years working on optimizing my productivity while living with a brand new ADHD diagnosis. The tips and tricks presented in this series will be provided in a rapid-fire format as I tell you what helped me get through uni with a busy schedule, ADHD, and my sanity more or less intact as I got to understand my condition better. Today we will be discussing how to manage overall well-being at university. Uni is normally a busy time whether we have things down on our calendar or not. For those with ADHD, this can leave us feeling stimulated at best or overwhelmed at worst. This episode is aimed at those who want to improve their well-being no matter how they are feeling, through mindfulness and some practical steps. If you're especially struggling with managing food or sleep, I encourage you to check out the previous episodes of the Survival Guide for further information. For now though, we have a lot to get through, so let's get to it. First, well-being is obviously a complex beast, which depends on multiple different factors. In some respects, it would be reductionist of me to say that every tip presented in this episode will be perfect for you. However, there have been points where I personally really struggled, and these tips have helped me a lot. So first, if you're feeling low, then I advise hitting what I like to call my fundamentals. These are food, water, and time outside. There were points in university where getting out of bed felt like too much, and on days like this, I would do everything in my power not to worry about being productive, and just trying to eat healthily, drink enough water, and do something outside. Bonus points if you do something with a friend. It always surprised me how much this helped me to regulate my mood and set me up for a good evening. I also use the fundamentals to check in with myself in day-to-day life. If I'm tired, I try to drink some water and get some healthy food in my diet. If I'm feeling very shut in and sluggish after a weekend in, I try to go outside. This makes them a great benchmark for checking in with your overall well-being on a daily basis, no matter where your mental health is right now. We should also take this time to consider the impact of meditation and journaling as part of our well-being journey. Both of these techniques admittedly are not only cliché, but also very effective when we need to come back to ourselves. I started journaling properly about a year and a half ago, and I found writing down any negative or anxious or looping thoughts that I had helped me to get them out of my head, as if by writing down the thought it was somewhere safe where I didn't need to worry about remembering it. On the other hand, meditation helps a lot with re-regulating the nervous system, a system which can be notoriously dysregulated by ADHD. Between them, these techniques have done a lot for my well-being regardless of my mental health. If you want to try meditation and journaling, I would recommend meditating for about 10 minutes a day at a fixed time. But if that's too much, then there are many shorter meditations you can try online. I use Headspace, but that is just one of many options. Journaling is also most effective when done every day, but if you're struggling to fit in, then I would say to try it at least once a week for a check-in. Always list 3 things that you're grateful for at the end of each journal entry, and always see if you can be grateful for yourself and what you do when you do this. Sometimes it can be hard to think and appreciate how much we do and go through if we don't write it down. So try and be grateful for yourself when you can too. Now that we have spoken about how to slow down, I want to talk about how to effectively speed up. When I was at uni, I found working on what I needed to do was actually pretty difficult. This was because all of my deadlines were at the very end of my course, and all of my time before then just felt like a big empty void where I had to do something vaguely productive. One of the big things that changed this for me was by having a routine. Every day I would get up, get ready, and leave the house. I'd then lock up my bike in the same place, get a coffee, call someone on my walk to the library, and settle into my work. I'd then do some work, get lunch around 1 p.m, do a couple more hours work before heading home or elsewhere. By having a routine that you follow automatically, you dedicate less time to thinking and more time focusing your attention to more important places. The more you can automate, the better, since there'll be fewer points of uncertainty around your routine. However, this doesn't mean that you should necessarily strive for absolute perfection in your routine. Sometimes we are tired, sick, or running low on dopamine stores, and it'll be counterproductive to do everything we normally do. Days like this are totally okay to have. Just make sure you get back to your routine as soon as you can, whether you need to adapt it or not, to make sure you don't have to waste a load of energy down the road building up new habits again. Another thing to consider with ADHD is that you need to have novelty. Routines are great. Sure, they're amazing. But when you have a brain which is constantly hunting for dopamine, it's good practice to allow for some variability. You could do this maybe by changing your study space, trying a new meal, or spending rest time doing different things with friends. Don't think you need to be totally rigid in your routine in order to be productive if that doesn't work for you. Work with yourself instead to find the right solution for you. Next, we need to discuss how important meaningful rest is. Everyone who wants a good work-life balance and well-being should know what meaningful rest is to them. Too often, I saw my stressed out peers saying they'd rested all weekend, and in response to this, I would always ask them, did we spend all weekend worrying about starting your work and not doing it, or were you actually resting? More often than not, they would have been procrastinating. We need to remind ourselves that these kinds of rests, well, one is for guilt and one is an actual rest, these are two different things. We will never feel rested if we feel rushed or guilty during our rest time. Instead, try and have some time each week, maybe even each day, which is dedicated to resting and existing guilt-free. This can be hard when you're surrounded by people hustling all the time, but I guarantee you that it's worth it. Rest helps us to regulate our mental health, feel less overwhelmed, and regulate our immune system. Not having a real break from stress leaves us to open to all sorts of health issues down the road, so make meaningful rest a good habit that you keep coming back to regardless of whether you're at uni or not. Next, I want to turn to how our digital existence can affect our overall well-being and what we can do to improve our relationship with technology. I spent most of my free time in my teenage years gaming and doom scrolling, so imagine the surprise I had when I moved to uni and had way more time to do this stuff. Unsurprisingly though, this didn't last forever. I would spend hours trapped scrolling or playing games on my phone. Even after I deleted my social media apps, I would just honestly log into the web versions and keep scrolling endlessly. I felt very trapped and it took a very long time to develop a system that worked. I started by purchasing Freedom, which is not sponsored. It's a content blocker which stops me from accessing specified apps and websites. I chose it over other options because I could use it cross-platform on both my Apple MacBook and my Android phone. Every day I specified quiet times where I blocked all news websites and social media from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 8 p.m. to 11 p.m. This stops me from opening my phone and scrolling as soon as I wake up or right before I go to bed. The next thing I did was reset all of my passwords, make sure they were not memorable, store them away in my password system, log out on all platforms and throw away the key. Okay, maybe not that last bit, but I did put my password behind a couple of layers. I have a habit of losing hours of my time to doom scrolling through shorts and feeds. I can't do that if I'm locked down on my socials. Finally, I had to take care of my biggest vice, YouTube Shorts. You have no idea how I can watch it for so long, but I will start viewing it non-stop for hours. To get past this, I installed the Enhancer for YouTube extension onto my Firefox. This extension allows me to customize my YouTube, including removing the Shorts button. I can't access Shorts if the button isn't there, so I consider this an absolute win. I also just straight up blocked YouTube permanently on my phone using Freedom. Even with quiet mornings and evenings, my brain had a tendency to scroll Shorts the rest of the time, which only served me to lose hours. I ended up with the whole operation down on my phone for the sake of my insanity. Is this a perfect system? Probably not. Social media can be a great place for building communities and promoting yourself. I still frequently use it to advertise this very podcast. But I will say that since putting in some preventative measures, I feel much less wired and I'm slowly losing my compulsion to dedicate myself to hours of scrolling at a time. Honestly, it's quite a nice feeling. In the final part of this episode, we should really think about what to do if we are struggling to approach our work and can't really do anything even if we try. I have come face to face with this problem quite a few times over the years, and the solution tended to be a little different each time. Sometimes I powered through at the detriment of my own mental health, which I do not recommend. Other times I tried to take a rest or do another task before coming back to my problem. But what helped me the most was considering my work as part of my sensory experience. I think it can be easy to see work as something we have to do, something almost separate from our sensory needs, but we put so much time into it that we shouldn't ignore what we can do to make our experience more pleasant. Maybe change the settings on your computer, where you sit, even the switches in your keyboard if you are a tech nerd like me. I use brown switches. I'd love to know what you guys use. Whatever it is, consider your sensory needs and see if you can leverage them to make your work seem more approachable. It may just be worth it. And with that, we're done with all the tips and tricks related to well-being. If you take anything from this episode, remember that if things go wrong, it's not the end of the world. Believe this from someone who had a breakdown trying to finish their bachelor's and is awaiting an academic appeal after failing their master's. Perfection is impossible and success isn't guaranteed. All you can really do, both in uni and in life, is control your attitude and accept yourself as you are. Is everything going to be easy? Probably not. But being hard on yourself isn't going to make things any easier. Be kind to the whole of yourself, not just the student part. Your well-being is always worth more than any paper qualification, no matter what it may feel like at the time. If you're struggling, get in touch with your university services, professionals, or a member of staff or friend that you trust. There are always more people to catch you than you realize. So take a deep breath. You got this. This concludes the ADHD Survival Guide episode on well-being. Thanks so much for tuning in to the third episode of the Survival Guide on the HE Enabled podcast. I hope you find these tips and tricks as useful as I have. If you have any thoughts or want to share your own advice, then the comments section on this episode is open. Now, for those of you who listen regularly, you may think that this is the final episode in this mini-series, but I do have one final surprise. Join me next time on the ADHD Survival Guide, where I will discuss my techniques for financial management on a limited income at uni. I'll be talking about how to make and keep a budget, tracking spending, and the tools I use to keep myself accountable. I'll also dedicate some time to discussing how credit cards work and whether it would be for you. It should honestly be quite good fun. The ADHD Survival Guide is a sub-series of the HE Enabled podcast, a platform for those with disabilities and long-term health conditions in the British higher education system to share their stories. If you are interested in being on the show to share your experiences of disability, then get in touch at henabled@gmail.com. That is HENABLED@gmail.com. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll speak to you next time.